in recent years is that bureaucrats retire, diplomats retire, and within 2 years they have a book out, which is usually memoirs. There are some scholars among these diplomats and bureaucrats, but mostly, the books come out in the form of a memoir. This is pretty much a book focused on Punjab and what happened in Punjab from the time that he arrived there and up to much later. Let me begin with something which I think is a difficult question to answer. When you found yourself posted as the district magistrate of Amritsar, and being from Punjab yourself, and it would be very, very hard to recollect what you understood about the situation in Punjab at that time. But if you could indulge us a little bit, what was your understanding of the Punjab problem, Punjab situation when you took charge? And based on your experience over the next few years, especially as the DM of Punjab, how did that conflict with what you learned about the situation? So can we begin with that, please?
First, I have to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you all at the Goa International Center. It's very sweet of him to have extended me an invite to visit here and share my thoughts with you all. This book, which you see, Turmoil in Punjab Before and After Blue Star, an insider's story. It was released around end of June and beginning of July this year, and it is done very well in the market, in the sense that it's very well received. If you see the book, there are few blurbs. I'll come to your question, sir. There are blurbs by General V.K. Malik, the former Chief of Army Staff. There is an endorsement by Mark Tully, the famous BBC journalist, by the Pankar Gupta, a very well-known sociologist from JNU, who often writes for Times of India. Dr. Garewal, who was head of the Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla and Vice Chancellor of few universities, and so on and so forth. I am only mentioning these because one common thread in all these blurbs is that the book is objective. You see. And secondly, though I was a participant in the course of events at that time, I have tried to keep myself as much in the you see, the usual tragedy of most of the autobiographical histories is that man comes, very prominently in this. It becomes a story about self rather than of the events and of the happenings or of the system or the administration. And I was very conscious of this. I have brought in my name only where it was relevant to the context in which things were happening. This is partly, Dr. Pushkar, the reason why the delay in writing, to answer you. See, I retired in 2009 as Chief Secretary. Then I was Chief Information Commissioner for 5 years. And thereafter, I started writing about it. If I may use the expression, tragedy of books on Punjab, on those 2 decades of militancy is that either they were like instant coffee, immediately after the Blue Star, the books came, including Mark Tully's. And they sold out like hotcakes because the subject was very, topical and hot. Or books are, taking extreme sides, either pro the so-called cause of Punjab or against it and taking it in a wider national context, the entire happenings as anti-national. I felt that most of the authors have not done justice in the sense that it's a one-sided projection. So the story has to be very objective, and balanced, so that let the reader make out the truth. The second challenge, another challenge before me was, when most of these books were written, whether by Mark Tully or let's say former governor Mr. Pandey, who published his autobiography. After his death, it was published by his legal heirs. He had put a kind of 30-year ceiling on the book, do not bring it out. So these books do not quote sources of information. For authenticity of the book, it's extremely important, and academicians know it more than anyone else, that when you state a fact which you have participated in or you have witnessed, it could be challenged. But if you could document it by a reference to an authentic source, it lends credibility to the book. And I did a lot of research for this reason. Even when I knew what was the truth, even when I knew that I was there, I was eyewitness to it, I have tried to endorse it, if I could, by quoting authentic people, published works or documents and so forth. So to that extent, it's a book of reference. I would say it's a book of history for future. Now, coming to the second part of the question, Dr. Pushkar, when I took over, what I saw, and was it validated by the events which followed thereafter? You see, Punjab, let me use a little provocative sentence here, with the intent to prompt you to ask questions later, was a victim of competitive center-state relations. The struggle in Punjab originated when, post-emergency, the state government was dismissed, even when it enjoyed clear majority in the legislature. It was a coalition government between the then Janata Party and, or BJP, you may say so, and Akali Dal and leftists. Now, immediately these people, started to regain power. They came with a agenda and passed a resolution which is commonly known as Anandpur Sahib resolution. Now, if you see that resolution, the contested portion in that was, they were demanding, equal federal-state relations. That India should be a true federation, the same way as Tamil Nadu was demanding, same way as Jyoti Basu was demanding in West Bengal at that time. There were, of course, other economic demands, social demands, and religious demands, like there should be relay of Gurbani, that is the religious hymns from Golden Temple. The train should be named after Golden Temple, and the walled city of Amritsar should be declared a holy city with no smoking and meat shops in the area. Now, in 81, this struggle began between center and state. At that time, it was a purely political movement. The issue became complicated. Punjab, as you know, was partitioned in 1966. Haryana was created. A part of Punjab went to Himachal Pradesh, which became Union Territory, which was Union Territory and became independent state. And the present Punjab remained it. Now, that created its own problems. Sharing of the assets between, erstwhile partners and the state. And water was the main issue. There was a dispute pending between Punjab and Haryana in the Supreme Court. At that time, Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister of India. He held a meeting between the two chief ministers but did not intervene with that. In the meantime, earlier emergency was declared, and Akali Dal was one of the main parties emergency. Over people of the party, they quoted arrest for a year and a half or 2 years. Then, the elections were held, we know, Mrs. Gandhi came back to power, and she, at that time, in the elections in Punjab and Haryana, Congress came to power. Darbara Singh became Chief Minister of Punjab. Bhajan Lal became Chief Minister of Haryana. Mrs. Gandhi told both of them that you withdraw the case from Supreme Court. And she adjudicated it, as a political award between the two states. This somehow was perceived by Punjab as having gone against them, and they viewed it that it's a kind of a punishment for opposing emergency, courting arrests in such huge, large numbers. As things moved on, the foundation stone of a canal from which the water was to be taken to Haryana. It is known as SYL, Satluj Yamuna Link Canal. The trouble started from that point. Militants killed the chief engineer of the canal, and declared that we will not allow this to be made. 1982, Kali declared a formal morcha. Morcha is a movement, that we will keep on quoting arrests till our demands are met. Now, from 81, talks were going on. Between 82 and 84, 26 meetings took place between the agitators. Initially the agitation was supported by BJP, it was supported by the leftists, PIL and M. But at a later stage, the Akali Dal shifted its morcha to Golden Temple from Kapuri, which was the place where foundation stone of SYL canal was laid. When it moved to Golden Temple, it naturally obtained a religious, and both BJP and leftists, they, silently withdrew from the NA. And that gave it a color of Sikh demands to the demands of Punjab. To that extent, to anchor your headquarters in the Golden Temple. Between 82 to 84, 26 meetings took place, in which 4 meetings the Prime Minister herself participated. Rajiv Gandhi held negotiation. Some opposition leaders like Harkishan Singh Surjit, the communist leader, he negotiated it, and so on and so forth. Swaran Singh was one of the negotiators. Captain Amrinder Singh negotiated. Now, if you see those demands, apart from that Anandpur Sahab's resolutions clause that of federalism, which Congress whipped up, or let me put it, the central government whipped up as anti-national, dubbing the Akalis as anti-nationals, and Akali Dal saying center is against Sikhs and it's not giving it demands. So the conflict became more or less direct, It continued. Now, there is another dimension to this conflict, which is not center-state relation, but purely religious. You see, Nirankari is I don't know how many of you are familiar with this name, was a sect within Sikhism. In 47, when people shifted to from West Punjab to India, a small group of Nirankaris went to Delhi and established a society. And the SGPC, Shromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, which is the religious body, elected religious body, statutory body, opposed it, that you are deviating from the tenets of Sikhism and you are preaching or committing sacrilege. The conflict started, and in 1979, in a conflict, you see, between Sant Pindrawala, who was at that time head of a Sikh seminary, but not very well known. He was a preacher of religion. We call it Amrit Prachar, propagating that don't drink, keep your identity and wear kirpan and so on and so forth. His boys and Nirankaris clashed. About 18 people in all got killed. That lent it a violent turn, and this movement, and those Nirankaris who had come armed, who had fired, they were acquitted by the judicial court. Because the then governor did not prefer an appeal to the High Court, that gave them a cause that there has to be retribution. And the first killings in Punjab started of Nirankaris. You see, it was purely religious, and some of these militant organizations, they went on record, they held press conferences that we are not against Hindus, we have not killed a single Hindu, but we have killed so many Nirankaris. It is around this stage that Pakistan also started supporting the movement. So when I went to Amritsar in 1984, the situation was very violent. Murders were taking place. At a couple of places, buses were stopped. Hindus were singled out of the buses, taken out and killed. Banks were being looted because to fund the movement, you need money. And this is no foreign power, whether it is Pakistan or any other country, will directly fund you. You see, it's all hush-hush, underground, because otherwise your identity will be known, and your right for denial, no, we are not involved. It's your own people who are doing it, that will stand exposed. So they, as a cover-up, encouraged looting of the banks. In almost a year and a half, I think 32 odd branches throughout Punjab were, high-day robberies. Policemen were killed and shot dead. There was a virtual collapse of the administration. Darbara Singh's government was dismissed after passengers were taken out of bus and killed. B.D. Pandey was transferred from Bengal governor as Punjab governor. But the situation deteriorated. So in 84, when I went there, by that time, fortification of Golden Temple and the areas around had already taken place. Now, there are various questions. Who allowed the weapons to go in? Who allowed the morchas to be built in? Why no action was taken if the agitations, killing of Nirankaris started in 78, and 82, when the foundation stone of SYL was laid and the engineers were murdered or people were pulled out of buses and killed, why steps were not taken? Why the situation was allowed to drift slowly to a point, which it reached. Anyway, then 84, the government took the decision to call in army. Army went in, Blue Star took place, and that triggered its own movement. And it is post Blue Star that it turned out to be a ethno-national movement. Earlier it was just a movement for demands and a movement, call it retribution, call it revenge against the Nirankaris. You see, when I went, I took over on 4th morning. Army had reached there on 3rd June. They went into the Golden Temple on 5th evening, and the operation took place. Post Blue Star, there was a lull. There were two reasons for this. One, the militants, large number of them died inside the Golden Temple. Many slipped across to Pakistan. India-Pakistan border on Punjab was not fenced. It was like this small patch you see between these two chairs, the passage, throughout the length of the border, there was a kacha pathway. And like you put chair this side and that side, there were burjis, about 4 or 5 feet high burjis, which demarcated the area. And smuggling was common in those days, all throughout, starting from 47. Pakistan, they imported liquor, pan. The Muslims are very fond of pan and they don't grow pan. So pan used to go from here, pan supari used to go from there, whiskey used to go from here. And from that side, opium used to come, gold used to come. And on both sides of the border, there were well-established smugglers. Very well established. In fact, let me tell you, I started my career in West Bengal. I am 74 batch. I served there for 4 years and then came to Punjab in 87. When I went to West Bengal, I learnt a new term, wagon breaker. During the lawlessness of Marxist movement, Leninist movement, Naxalites, trains used to be looted. After entering, in fact, it started from Bihar, somewhere in Dhanbad area. And as the train moved and reached at Calcutta, the bogies will be empty inside. It had been cleared out. So when I was posted in a district called Birbhum, Shudi headquarter. So as a part of my acquaintance, I went around in the rural areas. Whenever I saw a good, constructed pakka house, I would ask, "Ye kiska hai?" Okay, wagon breaker ka hai. The same way when I went to Amritsar and I toured the border area, most of the houses along the border, otherwise it's very, prosperous. But along the border, because of the wars, people hesitated to build pakka houses. So you ask, ye bada acha makan hai, ye smuggler hai ji. Same way. In fact, recently a book has come, and it's written by a professor of Islamabad University, Borderlands of Punjab. It's published by Oxford. And he has, it came out after my book. I had not read it, but I could have quoted him to lend justification to what I have stated in my book, that Pakistan ISI picked up on few prominent smugglers, which will house the boys when they go across from Punjab, give them shelter, food, then escort them to the appropriate police stations and other authorities. They'll be screened and scanned. Those found, good material for them, they'll pick them up and train them and fund them and then resend them. For record purposes, they will pick up an odd smugglers, chota, so that it seems that they are taking action. It's eye-opening book coming from a Pakistani. Oxford University Press has, Indian Oxford University has, press in India has republished it as a book in India. It's available now. It's an acknowledgement, and one of them, he goes on to say, became MP and MLA, one of the smugglers. And same is more or less true of this side also. Many of them were equally prominent. Why I'm giving you these details is that going across the border, picking up weapons, and linking it with drug smuggling to give the impression that it is funded by the mafia, and not by ISI as a cover. All clandestine operations have this kind of a cover, so that accountability cannot be pinpointed. So that came. But strangely, let me tell you, this may be a surprise for you, that after the Operation Blue Star, most of the weapons captured from Golden Temple, including LMGs, light machine guns, were of Indian Army origin. Now you'll say, why? How come? These were the weapons which Pakistan had captured, in 65, 71, and they rechanneled it to these boys, just for maintaining deniability, that we are not involved. It is much later that AK-47 and these Chinese weapons started coming in. So this is the situation. Delhi there were murders, violence was there, and government seemed absolutely ineffective.
Operation Blue Star is now universally recognized as a the almost the wrongest possible kind of response that the Indian state could have undertaken. What were from your perspective, again with the benefit of hindsight, of course, what would have been the 2 or 3 other options that could have been pursued at that time? I mean, you noted that the law and order situation had really deteriorated, that the ISI was involved, I mean, sort of as a response to, the birth of creation of Bangladesh, for which it held India responsible and towards which it continues to be active. But there's also no denying that the Indian state, could have pursued other options. What were those other options that were possibly open?
You see, the first lesson is, in law and order, there should be no party politics. Moment you start playing, law and order is well laid. The administration should act spontaneously when a crime takes place. Now, in this case, unfortunately, the state didn't, I would say, assert itself to enforce law. Some of you may be familiar who have been following Punjab. The local DIG, Mr. Atwal, he was shot dead outside Golden Temple. The boy came from inside, he ran back into the Sarai complex of the Golden Temple. The local superintendent of police rings up the chief minister for instructions. The chief minister in turn, Darbara Singh, rings up, tries to reach the prime minister, who was on tour to Rajasthan. So he had a chat with PC Alexander, the principal secretary to Prime Minister, and after 2 hours, it was conveyed to him, do not enter the Sarai complex. And SSP made a request to the SGPC, please hand over the body. For more than 2 hours, the DIG, local DIG, he was lying dead outside. Now, if you deal with law and order like this, you see, situation will drift. Militants will become more bold. And it did happen. Next time, they attacked an IS officer outside the secretariat where DGP, chief secretary and the chief minister sit. His gunman was killed. He fortunately escaped, you see. And another chief minister, Ben Singh, was killed outside the secretariat. His car was blown, So the point I'm making is, the situation should not have been allowed to linger till 1984. This is the first answer. You did not need a blue star if you had acted in time. You allowed the number of militants to, proliferate, to increase. You allowed heavier weapons to come in their hands. You allowed the fortification of the Golden Temple. And let me tell you, Mr. Bhinder, who was the police head of Punjab, he has gone on record. He was police commissioner Delhi and was brought to Punjab. When he was asked, why did you not check the fortification of Golden Temple? He said there were instructions from top not to search the vehicles going into Golden Temple. Now, you can draw your own inferences from this. I don't have to say why it happened, And I have quoted his statement. I knew it, but I have quoted the source, that is Statesman, the newspaper. Now, if you permit the situation to drift, if you permit the law and order to be, and let me tell you, without mincing words, in India, situation has not improved much. It's matter of degree, not of kind. Even today, and it's across board in all states, administration looks towards higher authorities, on which side is the wind blowing. Unless the law and order authorities learn to act on the movement according to law, situations will kept on, developing like this. Now, what were the options, other options? Supposing we did not take action, we allowed the situation to drift, 84. In fact, 3 options were considered. I have mentioned those in book. One of the option was to penetrate the inner circles of this top hierarchy of the militants, and once we have penetrated, then take on the top guns, eliminate them. Now, this has been disclosed by Mr. Birbal Nath in his book, which I have quoted him, though I was otherwise also aware, but I have quoted him. He was Director General of Police Punjab, then he was Director General of Border Security for BSF. He says, now this is again a commentary on the way the bureaucracy works, He says it had to be funded, the operation, but the financial sanction came too late to fund it. And it flopped, Another was to send people by chopper and pick up. These were options. Every option had its implications, mind you. Another was to take on a sharpshooter where the Israelis do it. If you read books on Israeli intelligence agencies, you will find they have gone all over the world killing people, their perceived enemies, They will infiltrate 4 or 5 people in groups, supply them all the infrastructure. Nobody will trace it, And in this case, I have quoted it, one of the chiefs of one of the agencies, he said, we can do it. But you see, the trouble comes if it is exposed. We are a democracy, So the rule of law comes in. Now, this is a very debatable question. When you have terrorism, how do you deal with it? You have to maintain rule of law, because you are a democracy, but that is a constraint on your system. To that extent, you have to be more efficient. So these options could have been exercised, but the best option was to act, not allow the situation to drift. There is another way of dealing with this. And 2 army generals, General Sinha, who later on became Lieutenant Governor, and General V.K. Nair. They have written books, Army. General Nair was part of the Directorate of Military Operations as number 2. General Somaya was heading it. He says in March 84 or so, the situation had become so bad that we thought in army that let's keep some plan ready, so that just in case we are called, we are not caught on the wrong foot or sleeping. Similarly, General Sinha has written that he had advised that if you have to go in, get hold of an army paiji, the army equivalent of Pandit for a Gurdwara, paiji, start a Khand Path outside Golden Temple, get prominent Sikhs and appeal to the militants inside, why do you want to create this situation? Come out. And if they still did not, then you go in. By that time, you will be able to build public opinion, that the fault lies not with the state, the fault lies on the other side, because they did not respond to the opportunity given by the state to come out and, So, but anyway, these are all, hindsight, but these were available, these options. The troops which were involved in Operation Blue Star, I mean, my hunch is, I don't have authentic information, so I don't want to commit on that. But my hunch is that these plans of VK Nair and Sinha were not shared with him, with those troops. They were sent from Meerut, told to act, and they presumed that once they have encircled the Golden Temple and they have brought in tanks, they have brought in artillery guns, these militants had built machans on top of water tanks, and there are 2 minarets in the Golden Temple. They had fortified those also as observation posts as well as with long-range weapons, So those were blown off before army went inside, those machans, with tank fire and small RT guns. So they presumed that when such a force with such enormous arms, like tanks and APCs moves in, the militants will surrender. They will see the logic, of not fighting and move out. Now, strangely again, another how we could have done the other way. There was a general by the name of Major General Shahbeg Singh. He was a DIG, brigadier during Bangladesh War, and he dressed himself as a Muslim, wearing a Muslim cap, went inside Pakistan, created Mukti Bahini, trained Mukti Bahini. In 71. General Brad, who was the official commander on this side, was also part of Bangladesh operations. Both of them were awarded, their services were recognized, And General Shahbeg was also an instructor in the Indian Military Academy, Dehradun, when General Brad was a cadet. So he had trained him also. Now, this was a kind of equation between two. Now, what happened on the last date of retirement of General Shahbeg, he was cashiered out, for some alleged charges that he had, military stores, etc., were probably consumed by him for personal benefits and so on and so forth, a day before his retirement. Now, he felt aggrieved. CBI registered cases against him. Now, with that feeling of hurt, a national hero turned foe, I would say. And strangely, to strengthen his resolve, the courts acquitted him in both the CBI cases. So his perception that he was innocent got strengthened. It got a legal stamp on it. And he went and joined Pindrawala and managed all fortifications inside Golden Temple. So these boys, in a way, were guided. The chain of command inside the temple was managed by this former cashiered Major General of Indian Army. Why did not General Brad, put up a communication with him? And I have said so in my book, that had the two generals talked, one cashiered, one commanding troops, I am very confident, the battle would not have taken place. Some compromise could have been resolved. We tried to intervene in the civil administration, but army had its own command of chain. I will not go into that. And it did not happen. That is the sense.